We are on week 10 of the 12-week Starting Over series, and I am excited that we are on week 10 because this was one heck of a commitment for me to make to not only myself but to you guys as well, and I hope that it has been helpful. So last week we talked about really setting yourself apart and getting creative in terms of creating opportunities for yourself. I shared a little bit about my own background and how I got different jobs and different opportunities by doing things a little bit differently and having some unique approaches to my job search or just trying to get my foot in the door in new industries. So this week I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically around if you're starting over and trying to get, it could be your first job or your first job after prison, or maybe you haven't worked in a long time and maybe you just got out of a long relationship and you have a really big gap in your resume, and that's something that you're feeling a little insecure about. So I'm just going to give a couple of different tips based on what I'm seeing. We interview people all day, every day. I have a staffing agency for second chances, meaning we specifically help people coming out of prison or people who are starting over in life find meaningful employment. So I look at resumes a little differently, and there are things that I see that would be rejected by a lot of other employers, but because I know that I dig a little deeper to get the full story, there's a lot of things that I overlook, but not everybody is like that. So I wanted to give just a few tips and some insights if you are one of those people who are getting back into the job market or getting out of prison and looking for a job for the first time with some felonies on your record. And I know that can be really scary. So the first thing that I'm going to say is this is your time to shine. There couldn't be a better time in the history of the world for you to have a felony and be looking for a job. We had COVID, and that caused a lot of companies to have to loosen their background restrictions. That's really what helped my company grow so much, because so many people were on unemployment. And so whenever you're just getting out of prison and you don't have work history, you are not eligible for unemployment. And once companies started realizing that, they started looking into those untapped talent pools, and we were able to help with that. And that was just literally a godsend for our company while we were going through such a difficult time. So right now is the time to shine if you are looking for employment. And even if you're looking for an employment and you don't have a felony on your record, maybe you have a major gap in your resume. There are so many companies that are now becoming more progressive and shining a spotlight on mental health and work-life balance, to where if you simply cater your cover letter towards the companies you're applying for and explain why there's a gap in your resume and just be honest and transparent. Remember that people who are reviewing your resume are human beings like me and you. They are not some big God sitting in a king throne, a chair, looking down on you. They are human beings that get up every single morning and put their pants on the same way we put our pants on. Their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, their brothers, their sons. So they have experiences in life too that may differ from yours, but there may be something that you say in your cover letter that really hits home with them and they can relate to. That's going to bring me to my next point. We get a lot of, obviously, as a staffing agency, a lot of people will apply to our jobs and just apply, and apply to tons of jobs. And then when we do pick up the phone, and these are even people who are applying for really high-paying skilled jobs. And so I personally I don't love as a recruiter. I understand it, but I don't like whenever I call someone and they're like, I'm sorry, can you please remind me of what job this is? Because I applied to so many jobs over the weekend. That may be true that you are applying to a ton of different jobs, but if I were in the shoes of a job seeker, I would really remember I would target each and every single job I'm applying for instead of throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what would stick. I would get me a notebook and write down every single job that I applied for and look up the HR person that works at that place, or try to learn a little bit about the history of that company and add that into your cover letter, along with some of your background and why you feel that you would be a fit for their culture. That's really going to help you stand out, because it's actually pretty rare that anybody does that with us. And when they do, they usually get the interview. I can't tell you how many times somebody's reached out to me on LinkedIn. Now, if somebody's just reaching out to me on LinkedIn and they're just like, hey, I'm looking for a job, can I pick your brain? Or, hey, sob story, and there's no like, hey, this is what I could bring to the table if you hire me. It's just, hey, I need something from you, and can you call me and can you help me get a job? I usually am not going to respond to those messages. But when somebody is transparent and they reach out to me and they show that they've done some research on my company, they show that they have followed some of the posts that we put out, and they talk about the qualities that they believe that they have despite the adversities and despite the different gaps on their resumes, I'm definitely going to reach back out to them. And so it's really easy to set yourself apart when so many people are just clicking apply. That brings me to my next point. Do not get discouraged or take it personally when somebody doesn't respond. Perhaps to you, especially if you've been through a lot, and if you're just now trying to get back on your feet and you're feeling some insecurities, it can feel really damaging to the ego to not get a response when you are attempting to get a job or going out on a limb and getting the courage to message an HR person through their LinkedIn, or send a cover letter that you worked really hard on and you spent almost all day getting somebody to proofread it and formatting it. I know that it can feel like a major rejection, but there's all kinds of different reasons that you may not get a response, and it's just about never personal. I personally get so many different messages in my inbox. I simply can't get back to them. There's times that I've already made an offer to somebody else, or somebody is about to accept a position that we know that we only have one spot for, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So do not be discouraged. Also, don't put all your eggs in one basket and just keep trying to apply to one job and one job only. Make sure that you're diverse in your search, and just, I know it's really difficult not to feel bad about yourself whenever you feel constant rejection. I see messages or posts all the time on LinkedIn when people talk about how damaging to their, literally soul crushing it can be to get rejection after rejection after rejection. But I firmly believe that if you get a little bit more strategic with how you're approaching applying to these jobs and really taking the amount of time it takes. So for me, I used to be in PR, and pitching the media different news stories felt like applying for a job, because I didn't get responses. It was a lot of rejection. And if I just threw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, it took me longer to get a success or a win. So what I would do is instead take a deep breath, slow down, research every single reporter I was pitching, and really hone in on instead of sending 50 emails, I would send 5 to 10 really great emails, and I'd get a better response. This video is going to end in 5 seconds, so I gotta go. I'm so sorry. Bye, everyone. See you next week.